Welcome to the Page Turner Adventures Creative Literacy Program, filled with crafts and activities that get kids excited about books and reading. We're gonna make some crafts out of bike tube tires. This is my new favorite material to work with. They are just fun to use, they are free, they're recycled, and you're keeping them out of the landfill because bike shops throw these things away. The bike shop we got these from said that they get 20 or 30 of these things a day that they just toss in the trash. So ask your bike shop, they'll probably just give them to you. And again, they're just really fun to work with, and there's a lot of things that you can do with them. First, they come in different sizes. So this is a nice thick one. This is a medium-sized tube. And over here we have a nice skinny racing bike tube that we're going to use a little bit later. So I think that I'm going to work with the medium-sized tube because we are going to make some belts out of the bike tube tires. That's my cool little steampunk-esque belt. You can also make this version. This one is kind of my, I don't know, it makes me think of Pat Benatar in the 80s with the little fringe. So you can do that, or you can do whatever you want. That's the thing, you can make anything that you want out of these in any style that you want. Something else that we're going to talk about is some jewelry. You can make a cool little bracelet. And also, this is a ring made out of one of the skinny tire tubes. So we're gonna start with the steampunk version of the belt. And this one, I'm actually going to do a little bit of sewing, but before we do that, I need to cut my tubes. Okay, so I am going to just cut the tube in half. And let's see, I'm gonna just figure out about how long I want my belt. And you can actually measure this. If you've seen any of the other videos that we've done, you know that I'm not real big on measuring things or doing things in an exact way, but that looks about right. So I'm gonna put this aside and hang on to the scraps because you can use them, and also even these little nozzles you can use for things. So I'm gonna set that aside now. And I'm just going to cut this open. And often they have these little lines so you can kind of follow the lines so it will keep it somewhat straight. Okay, so I cut it open. Now when you open the tire, you're going to see this kind of white powdery stuff inside. So we're gonna wanna get rid of that. So I have some water and some paper towels. I'm just going to wipe this down. There we go. Now we've got this nice, big, thick, wide piece of rubber. And I mean, you can make a really nice, thick, wide belt like this if you want. But I'm going to cut it because I am going to actually sew on this little belt buckle. And these are called D-rings. That's the type of buckle this is. So I want my belt to be about as wide as that. Unfortunately, this line, it looks like that's gonna be about as wide as I want. So I'm just going to cut that there. Okay, so we're gonna work with this skinny piece right here. I'm gonna set this piece aside. We can use this for another belt or something else later. And now I'm going to take my little D-rings, and you actually need 2 of them. They come in a set of 2. And you need a needle and thread. You want a pretty thick thread for this, and a pretty heavy sized needle. It doesn't need to be super thick, but a pretty decent sized needle. And I have one thread already over here. And we're going to actually sew this back onto itself. And the rubber sews really easily too. So I'm just going to start here. There we go. Okay, so we have our little belt buckle. Now I could stop here. This is kind of a cool little black belt just by itself, but we want to steampunk this out. So I am going to just use some different things to attach to my belt, and you can use whatever. Washers, and you can use old buttons and These are also washers. These are my favorite kind of washer. They're called lock washers, and they look like little gears. So that really gives you that steampunk gear look. And we did paint these gold. We spray painted them. They spray paint really nicely. So I'm gonna do a mix of gold and silver and buttons and just other little odds and ends. And I'm going to just glue them right onto the rubber. Now, my favorite glue for this kind of a project is super glue or crazy glue. It just works really well. It's hard to find glue that's going to stick to the rubber. That's the biggest challenge with this project. Now it depends on how you feel about super glue and working with kids with the super glue, because yes, your fingers can get stuck together. It's up to you. If you're going to use it, then you want to have something to put on your work surface so the glue doesn't get everywhere, because it will stick to everything. And you might want to wear some gloves or something like that. If you don't want to work with the super glue, this kind of Duco cement, Duco, not sure how it's pronounced, this will also work. Not as well, but it still will work. I created this steampunk belt only using this kind of glue. But for right now, this will also take a little bit longer to dry, maybe 5 minutes, where the super glue is pretty much drying immediately. So we're gonna use this one right now. And I am just going to start sticking on my little bits and pieces. Now you can do this however you want to do it. You can make it even, you can use all the same pieces. I like kind of this mix of looks going on, and the mix of silver and gold. I also like a mix of sizes, so I'm going to put some small little gears. This is also a lock washer. This piece too is also a lock washer, but it has interior teeth. And you can just find these in the hardware section of Home Depot or Lowe's, where you're gonna find the washers and nuts and bolts and things like that. So we're just gonna keep adding things on here. And that's pretty much it. I'm not gonna keep going because you get the idea. There we go. Oh, that part didn't dry yet, but there you go. That's what it's gonna look like, and you get the idea. If I keep going, we're gonna have a pretty cool belt. For this bracelet, I actually did sew on the button. So you can sew on a button, and then to make these little holes, I'm gonna show you a piece from here. You're just going to do it as if you're making snowflakes. I'm going to fold this piece in half and cut out some little holes. So there you go, that's kind of a cool looking bracelet. And again, I sewed on this button, and then I did cut a little buttonhole over here, so I'm just gonna show you how this looks. So I can keep the button like that, or put the button like that, and I have a cool little funky bracelet. And to go with my bracelet, I have my ring. And this was just that skinny little bike tire tube, and then I did use some glue to add some washers and lock washers to make a steampunk ring that I'm gonna wear right there. So there we go, I've got my belt, my bracelet, my ring, and it's all made out of bike tire tubes. For more great crafts and activities, visit our blog at pageturneradventures.com.